To share, just call 1-800-2-JOIN-IN today. Now that's something the whole family can get excited about. Verizon Wireless. Join in.
Kathy Lee's heartbreaking news plus John Walsh next ET.
A new case of anthrax, this time in the heart of New York City. It comes as the nation is on alert and on edge. Tonight, what you need to know about anthrax, what the risks are and or not of getting it, and the investigation into these latest cases. And as the war on terror builds, the president says, unite for the fight.
We need each other more than ever, and we're responding as quickly and as forcefully as we can.
Plus, the air war slows. Amid some evidence from inside Afghanistan, it may be working. Breaking news on airline safety, and it's not a promising flight plan. And Eye on America, casualties of terror, remembering the sailors of the cold 1 year later.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. Special expanded coverage, America on Guard. From CBS News headquarters in New York, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening. It is a somber time for this country. The United States government says you should be on alert because new terror attacks could come at any moment. American men and women in the military are risking their lives overseas in a war against a mass murder conspiracy. And today, a fourth case of anthrax confirmed. It's possibly delivered by mail here in New York City. The best weapon against fear is facts, and tonight CBS will give you as many facts as we possibly can. We have correspondents reporting from key locations across the country, and we begin in Washington, where Jim Stewart has the latest on the investigation of the new anthrax case here in New York. Jim?
Dan, the latest anthrax scares center around 2 letters mailed to news organizations in New York. And while both were postmarked St. Petersburg, Florida, it's still not clear that they have any connection or whether, in fact, they contained anything dangerous. It is almost certainly not terrorism, but the discovery of a relatively mild case of skin anthrax in New York today was enough to send an already jittery nation right to the brink of panic. U.S. and New York City officials moved quickly to explain the case and urge calm.
No matter what you say, people are going to be, some people will be afraid, but they really don't have to be. The reality is that this is being looked at. This looks like a contained situation.
The situation involved a secretary at NBC News who late last month opened a piece of mail containing an unidentified white powder. Several days later, she developed a skin lesion which was treated, and she is doing fine.
The test of the powder was negative to anthrax. The skin test was positive to anthrax.
So where she touched the anthrax spores isn't clear. But the FBI seemed immediately certain it had nothing to do with the terrorist attacks on September the 11th or an earlier detection of anthrax at a Florida-based tabloid newspaper.
We see no connection whatsoever to 9/11. The way we would handle this is to open it as a separate criminal matter and proceed from there.
Nevertheless, officials in Washington suggested everyone should play it safe.
If you see anything suspicious, contact your local law enforcement officials.
Specifically, be prudent and call police if any unidentified powder is sent to you by mail. Contact your doctor if any recent skin lesions turn dark and start to grow, and seek aid if any flu-like symptoms cause severe inhalation problems. And on the broader issue of real terrorist threats, U.S. officials now confirm that the alert issued Thursday by the FBI was partially in response to warnings from foreign intelligence services. And there was no mention in those warnings of a chemical or biological threat. Dan?
Jim Stewart, live in Washington. It has not been proven that all these anthrax incidents involve the mail, but U.S. Postmaster General John Potter today urged Americans to be cautious when opening letters or parcels. The FBI has posted guidelines for handling suspicious mail on its website. They include don't open, shake, or bump the item, look for indicators like no return address or foreign postage, evaluate the situation and call 911. The FBI website is at fbi.gov, or read the guidelines at cbs.com, click on News. The anthrax case in New York could not come at a worse time for the city, still feeling the hurt of the World Trade Center attack. And CBS's Anthony Mason reports it wasn't the only anthrax scare for the city today.
For New York, it was another day on the front line of fear.
Sidewalk. Come on, let's go.
In the trenches of terrorist hysteria. In Rockefeller Center, an anthrax case at NBC.
You just feel so vulnerable now because you don't know what's going to happen, where it's going to happen.
In Times Square, another scare and more police barricades.
I'm an editor at the New York Times, but they won't let me through, and the only thing they told me was that there's an investigation.
The New York Times had received a suspicious letter.
That some powder was in an envelope, it was opened.
Tests showed no apparent danger, but New Yorkers had another reason to worry.
Yeah, checking your mail just took on a new meaning.
New York's Mayor Rudy Giuliani cautioned,
people should not overreact to this.
But according to a new CBS News New York Times poll, nearly 3/4 of all New Yorkers fear another terrorist attack in their city.
We've all been expecting something, not necessarily at this building, but I think that we all feel something's going to happen. I just didn't think it would be here.
But panic never spread in the streets. In this hardened and still hustling city, they've learned to expect the unexpected.
Well, what I'm noticing is that everybody's out here on a beautiful Friday afternoon, and nobody's letting it freak them out. And I think that says a lot.
But even the false alarms are having a cumulative effect on the city's psyche, and in some ways changing the distinctive character of one of the world's greatest cities. Dan?
Live here in New York City, Anthony Mason. In the Florida anthrax case, tests given to almost 1,000 workers at the newspaper office in Boca Raton have come back negative. Some local postal workers are now being tested in case they unwittingly carried a contaminated package. One newspaper employee died last week from inhaled anthrax, and 2 others who tested positive for anthrax are doing well on antibiotics. There are a lot of fears about anthrax, what it is, how you can catch it, and the true extent of the risk. Medical correspondent Elizabeth Callahan has the facts on anthrax.
Anthrax spores can enter the human body 3 ways. As in Florida, the rarest and most deadly way is to inhale them. They can also be ingested if infected livestock is eaten. And finally, they can go through the skin in something called cutaneous anthrax, which is what happened to the NBC employee.
She is in good health, in good care.
Cutaneous anthrax is the most common and the mildest form of anthrax. There are about 2,000 cases worldwide and a handful of cases seen every year in the United States, most of those from people who work with animals. It is not easy to get. You cannot contract it by having spores land on you. They don't eat through healthy skin. But a small cut or abrasion would be enough to provide an entryway. From there, the first sign of infection would be a small pimple or ulcer, which would continue to grow into a black coal-like lesion. Anthrax got its name because an infection looks like anthracite or coal. Treatment involves antibiotics, Cipro, or penicillin.
With proper treatment, essentially no one should die from cutaneous anthrax, period.
As a precaution, a floor at NBC News was sealed off. CBS even closed its mailroom. But anthrax experts say small quantities of spores in the air or on surfaces cannot infect large numbers of people. The cases are isolated and localized.
It is not contagious. That's the first point. The building is shut down to prevent any further exposure, so that no one, if there's been a case there, then presumably there are anthrax spores in the building, and we don't want other people to get exposed.
Public health officials are walking a fine line here. On one hand, they must convince Americans that these unexplained incidents are no reason to panic. On the other hand, they themselves have so little experience with anthrax historically, they are also feeling their way through unsettling new terrain. Dan?
Elizabeth Callahan, thanks. For more context and facts on the threat of bioterror, we are joined now by retired U.S. Air Force Colonel Randy Larson. He directs the Institute for Homeland Security and teaches on that subject at the National War College. Colonel Larson is in our Washington Bureau. Colonel, given how rare a disease anthrax is in this country, is it fair or unfair to assume that America may be under some form of biological attack, and if so, by whom?
Well, I don't think there's any question, Dan, that America is under a biological attack tonight. And I'm not sure, I don't think the evidence is in yet, whether the New York case is even connected to the Florida case. But if it is an attack by Osama bin Laden, particularly let's look at Florida first, It's a very low-tech sort of attack, not the thing I've spent the last 7 years studying that keeps me awake at night. This is not that sort of attack. And it appears to me one of the best method to use a biological attack is with surprise. So I don't think that this is it demonstrates that Osama bin Laden is making this attack, or if he is, he's a very poor strategist, because our public health system is on top alert right now in this nation. And so, as your other experts have said, this is treatable. We have to catch it early like we are in these cases. We're going to see more of these, but this is not a serious threat, and it's not something people should be losing sleep over tonight.
What do the American people need to know? Is there anything they should do?
Yeah, one of the things that we've been talking about lately, animals are great sentinels. For you or I to be infected, Dan, we have to get 10 to 18,000 anthrax spores. That sounds like a lot, but it'll fit on the head of a pin. But a cow only needs 100. A cat is even a better sentinel. So if you have an animal or a pet that has died, you need to report that to your animal control unit. You need to report it to your local veterinarian. Cats are particularly good because it gets in their hair, they clean themselves, and they will be the first ones to show symptoms of anthrax. Early detection is the key.
Colonel, there are all kinds of wild scenarios, rumors floating around. What strikes you as a possible scenario that worries you?
Well, certainly not these, but the one that could be done, particularly if it was a nation state like Iraq was using some of the capability that we think they have, used in an indoor auditorium or something like that. It's very difficult to do outdoors, but used indoors, there could be a problem, and that's like the President said last night. We need to be on alert. If you're in an auditorium, a basketball stadium or something like that, and you see someone spraying something, you know, you have to do some visible things to release this into a crowd. Tell someone. That's very important. That early detection is the key.
Colonel Randy Larson, thanks.
Thank you.
At the White House today, President Bush gave his perspective on the threat of terror and reassured the public.
We cannot let the terrorists lock our country down. We can't let terrorists, a few evildoers, hold us hostage. They will not take this country down.
The president also said the government is doing, quote, everything in our power to keep Americans safe. Underscoring this, U.S. health officials report they have enough anthrax-fighting antibiotics to protect the public. Anthrax, war, terror, and threats of more. The USA is in an understandable state of anxiety, as CBS's Cynthia Bowers reports in tonight's Eye on America.
Near Denver today, hazmat crews were called to a local post office after white powder leaked from a parcel there. The powder turned out to be pudding, but the full force response is just another indication of just how jumpy Americans are these days.
I don't know what's going to happen next, so that's not like the life I used to have.
Today's report of another case of anthrax comes on the heels of yesterday's FBI warning, reinforced by the president that more terror attacks could be coming.
As we speak right now, I'm still scared walking around in the street right now.
Because that threat is so ill-defined, only that something could happen sometime, somewhere, there's extraordinary pressure to cover every base. In Atlanta, turnstiles were turned into security checkpoints this afternoon for thousands of fans who flocked to see the Braves-Astros playoff game. In Baltimore, all southbound trucks in the busy Harbor Tunnel were pulled to the side of the road for spot checks. Florida's governor ordered that state to stockpile vaccines and tighten restrictions for foreigners seeking driver's licenses. And in Chicago, concrete barricades and armed guards block access to the city's water supply around the clock.
We do not intend to take any chances.
Americans are being told to be prepared, but not for what? Not to panic, but given little reason not to.
What we're going through is a sense of anticipatory anxiety. We're afraid something's going to happen. We're not sure what it is, so we put our own fantasies on it.
Experts fear the constant threat of terror could lead to two different yet dangerous reactions. Some people may become afraid to leave home. Others may make the mistake of becoming less vigilant and more vulnerable. Cynthia Bowers, CBS News, Chicago.
CBS Next, assessing the Afghan bombing campaign and getting ready for round 2 in the air and on the ground.
It was my grandson's birthday. He just turned 3. We're going to move him out of his crib and buy him a big boy bed. I was on chemo then. and I was exhausted.
Grandpa.
I said to the doctor, I need help. I'm on a mission.
If you're a chemotherapy patient and feel tired and weak, you may be anemic. Ask your doctor about Procrit. Procrit is a natural way to regain red blood cells lost during chemotherapy. And more red blood cells can mean more strength.
Oh, this is a great one. This is a good one.
Procrit is proven and safe. In studies, only diarrhea and edema occurred more often with Procrit than placebo. Procrit is for patients with non-myeloid cancers.
How do you like it up here now?
Good.
Call now and learn how Procrit can help you get back the strength you need.
See? What'd I tell you?
Your strength for living.
He takes a lot of energy, but I never get tired of him.
Oh, the things we endure for beauty. Being lathered in hot molten metal. Buffed until raw. Inspected over 100 times. But that's what it takes to be a Delta faucet. Every Delta is carefully crafted and meticulously refined to be beautiful inside and out. Isn't it worth it? Delta. Beautifully engineered.
Johnson, I'd like to see some ideas on saving the company money. I'll be back first thing in the morning.
Think. That's the dumbest! Drink. Help!
Well, Johnson, Staples, that'll save us a lot of money. You are a genius.
Get extra savings for your business all this month at Staples.
You're not bigger. They're smaller. Mini Oreo.
Mom, how many Tums did you take right in front of the wedding planner?
You snuck one too.
It was a Pepsid Complete. It works fast like Tums, but it lasts for hours like Pepsid AC.
Chewable? Calcium? I gotta try this.
Decisions?
Pepsid Complete. Just one, and heartburn's done.
Except for a few daylight patrols by U.S. Navy fighter bombers, action in the skies over Afghanistan subsided on this Friday, the Muslim Day of Prayer. But CBS's David Martin reports this is to be only a brief lull, giving analysts a chance to assess damage.
The first set.
Taliban aircraft lined up like ducks in a row take direct hits from laser-guided bombs. U.S. officials say the Taliban have made little effort to disperse their forces to avoid the air attacks. But Defense Secretary Rumsfeld says he's not out just to destroy equipment. He wants to kill as many of Osama bin Laden's supporters and followers as he can.
The United States is seeking out concentrations of people who are involved in these terrorist activities and in the terrorist training camps and in the terrorist network. And when we find them, we do try to deal with them.
Long-range bombers have now carpet-bombed all of bin Laden's suspected training camps, although a satellite photo doesn't capture what that really means. 5,000-pound bunker buster bombs have struck caves where terrorists might be hiding.
We know that they are moving, that their life is more difficult, that the places where they have stayed, some of them have disappeared.
The heavy bombers didn't fly because Friday is the Sabbath in Afghanistan, and the Navy took a break to replenish their weapons and fuel. But attacks against targets of opportunity are continuing, as are covert operations inside Afghanistan.
There will be some things that people will see. There will be some things that people won't see.
One thing people can't see is the carrier Kitty Hawk. Somewhere off the coast of Pakistan, it is transforming itself from the empty deck carrier that left Japan last week to one that looks like this, crammed with special operations forces and helicopters ready to go after bin Laden. It's early Saturday morning now in Afghanistan, and once again there are reports of large explosions in the capital of Kabul. Dan?
From the Defense Department Live, David Martin. The 15,000 Muslims serving in the U.S. military today received the blessing of a panel of respected Muslim clerics from 3 Arab countries. They issued a fatwa, a formal ruling on Muslim faith and law, that denounces terrorism and endorses the morality of the war against it. This fatwa was requested by U.S. Army Captain Abdul Rashid Muhammad, who is the U.S. military's first Muslim chaplain. Ahead here on CBS, we take you deep inside Afghanistan and hear from people fleeing the capital who say the U.S. attack is working.
Tens of thousands of people continue to purchase new Oldsmobiles, like the completely redesigned 2002 Bravada. Are they impressed with its best-in-class 270 horsepower engine? Are they impressed with its 5-year, 60,000-mile GM protection plan? Or are they simply impressed? Are you in the market? Get in an Oldsmobile, backed by GM. Right now, get interest-free financing on all new Oldsmobiles. Let's help keep America rolling.
It's LensCrafter's best $99 offer ever. Right now, get a complete pair of glasses with DuraLens, our most scratch-resistant plastic lens for only $99. The $99 DuraLens event. This is one you don't want to miss.
Freezing chicken? Only Ziploc double guard freezer bags have an inner layer that clings to seal out air that causes freezer burn. Regular freezer bags don't. Put an end to freezer burn with a Ziploc double guard freezer bag. Freezing steak? Only Ziploc double guard freezer bags have an inner layer that clings to seal out air that causes freezer burn. Regular freezer bags don't. Put an end to freezer burn with a Ziploc double guard freezer bag.
If you have osteoarthritis, you owe it to yourself to learn about Celebrex. Celebrex specifically targets only the COX-2 enzyme, a key source of arthritis pain. Celebrex relieves arthritis pain, plus inflammation and stiffness too. Celebrex should not be taken if you've had aspirin-sensitive asthma or allergic reactions due to aspirin or other arthritis medicines, or certain drugs called sulfonamides. In rare cases, serious stomach problems, such as bleeding, can occur without warning. Tell your doctor if you have kidney or liver problems. Powerful 24-hour relief from osteoarthritis pain, inflammation, and stiffness. Ask your doctor about Celebrex, the #1 selling brand of prescription arthritis medicine.
Time to relax. What a time for bad heartburn. Try Extra Strength Mylanta. It works on tough nighttime heartburn fast. So go ahead, relax, if you can. Extra Strength Mylanta.
What kind of men will it take to get our hands on Osama bin Laden? Men just like the ones you'll meet Sunday on 60 Minutes.
Inside Afghanistan tonight, countless thousands of civilians, many of them women, are on the move in search of safe haven from war and the harsh rule of the Taliban. CBS's Jim Axelrod reports many are finding a measure of safety in the north behind the lines of the anti-Taliban alliance, the United Front.
In northern Afghanistan, it's a call to prayer, not arms. In dusty villages along the front, like Pule Mugalan, the guns of the anti-Taliban Mujahideen are quiet now that the U.S. has told the United Front to hold back on its attempt to take Kabul. But there is movement across the lines. 17 refugees from Kabul are packed into this truck. More cling to the roof. Eyewitnesses to the strikes. In Kabul, they say, only military targets have been hit. No civilians are killed, says this man. Only the Taliban are killed. They say that civilians are killed to stop America's attacks. They announced that. It's wrong. Kabul, they say, is a ghost town. Planes overhead keep people inside. Even the Taliban soldiers leave at night to avoid the bombs. The Taliban is weak, he says. I want God to remove them from our country and replace them with these mujahideen.
The refugees started their journey before dawn, driving to a place called Giyawa, the last village in Taliban-controlled territory. There, we've been told, they were systematically robbed before having to walk 2 more hours through a no-man's land to reach relative safety.
It's a trip, they say, the Taliban's made necessary. They've started to arrest people, says this man. Before the attacks, they didn't arrest anyone. Now they've started to arrest. So for now, they'll call this village home, hoping to retrace their path back to Kabul soon. I hope to see you in Kabul, says this man, and talk to you there. For this truckload of refugees and scores of others just like them, those would be answered prayers. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, Pule Mugalan, Afghanistan.
Islamic radicals in Pakistan had called for massive anti-American protest after prayers today, hoping millions would take to the streets. It didn't happen. There were some protests around the country, but smaller than the government had feared and kept largely under control by thousands of riot police and paramilitary troops. There's much more news ahead on this expanded edition of the CBS Evening News, so stay here with us.
America at war. Military strikes continue. Here at home, a growing anthrax scare and heightened terror alerts. Details Monday on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
My business is more than just a business to me. It's my passion. So when my doctor told me I have asthma, I went to cbshealthwatch.com. One click on Smart Search gives me exactly what I need to know about controlling my asthma, from medications to new treatments. With CBS Health Watch, I spend less time searching and more time doing the things I love.
Save time, get answers. Visit cbshealthwatch.com.
I'm every man.
And every woman who ever suffered from frequent, persistent heartburn.
If you've treated your heartburn and changed your diet, but it comes back 2 or more days a week, then you may know about the burning pain of acid reflux disease.
But there's something about acid reflux that I didn't know.
Over time, that acid churning up can wear away the lining of your esophagus.
I didn't know.
I didn't know.
I didn't.
But today, there's a purple pill called Nexium. It's from the makers of Prilosec. Just 1 prescription Nexium a day gives many people complete resolution of heartburn symptoms.
That could mean complete heartburn relief.
And importantly, Nexium is also proven to heal erosions in the esophagus caused by acid reflux. Only a doctor can determine if you have this damage. Other serious stomach conditions may still exist. The most common side effects of Nexium and Prilosec are headache, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. So talk to your doctor and call this number for more information and for a free trial certificate for Nexium.
Relieve the heartburn, heal the damage. It's possible with today's purple pill called Nexium.
Finally got out of college.
Finally got a job.
And then?
Marriage.
Now what?
Kids.
What?
And a house.
How many bedrooms?
And appliances.
That's the easy part.
At your local brand source store, great value, selection, and service allow you to focus on the more important things in life.
And for the baby's room?
Baby? Oh, baby.
Brand Source. We're your neighborhood expert.
Once you pass 50, skincare's a whole new game.
L'Oreal introduces age-perfect anti-sagging and ultra-hydrating treatment.
Because mature skin has issues all its own. It starts to sag, loses resiliency, and needs more moisture.
Age-perfect actually improves skin's resiliency, tightening its network as it deeply rehydrates. So effective, 83% of women reported more resilient skin.
It's a major breakthrough for mature skin.
New age-perfect anti-sagging and ultra-hydrating treatment, only from L'Oreal.
Because you're worth it.
In this age of terrorist attacks and turmoil, what do you teach your kids about good and bad? America Fights Back, next week on The Early Show with Bryant Gumbel and Jane Clayson.
Americans have been showing their patriotism in so many ways. Today at 2 Eastern Time, President Bush led students nationwide in pledging allegiance to the flag.
Yes, to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Some CBS stations will be returning now to local programming. If you're leaving us now, we invite you to join us again at 10, 9 Central for a special edition of 48 Hours. For many of you, this special fact-filled edition of the CBS Evening News will continue.